Joining me today on Better Than I Found It is former NCAA individual champion Jonathan Moore. Now, to be sure, Jonathan and I do our fair share of reminiscing about our time together as coach and player at OSU. But more importantly, he talks about his strong faith and how that very faith has strengthened him in his darkest moments in life. His story is one of overcoming. It's one of hope, and it is one of faith. His perspective is simply outstanding, and he teaches us all a little something about how to face life's greatest challenges. You know, I've learned so much from Jay Moore through the years, and I'm very thankful for that relationship. Prepare to be inspired. Okay, I'd like to welcome my guest on Better Than I Found It today, Jonathan Moore, the strength and conditioning coach at Oklahoma State University, and a really dear friend of mine. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Coach. It's a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed listening to your podcast for some time now, and it's fun to now get to be on it.
Could you ever dream that Mike McGraw would be doing a podcast?
No, I did not. But your book was incredible, and I think you got another one coming out, don't you?
Well, that's part of what's been put on hold. The podcast has kind of put that on hold, but I'm getting lots of good material from these.
Yeah.
It will help me. But yes, I plan on writing another one eventually. It's a little ways down the road.
Well, you do a wonderful job, and you've been so instrumental in golf, at really every level. So I just think it's great that you're doing this, and people get to learn from you. And so thanks for doing it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate you spending some time with me here today on the Better Than I Found It podcast. I'm just going to jump right in. Anybody that knows Jonathan Moore personally knows that faith is a very, very important thing to you. And so I kind of want to talk about faith, and I want to intermingle that through the stories that we talk about and the stories you tell today. But faith is very important to you, and talk to me a little bit about that just initially.
Yeah, it's it really is. I think it's just been the cornerstone of my life for sure. It's been it's been that thing that I think has really given me hope over the years, and just really in all circumstances. So I've been blessed to have, as I look forward to sharing kind of with everyone listening today, that some really, really high, exciting experiences in sports and in life, as well as some really difficult ones. But the thing that has always remained the same, I think, has been my faith, which I believe is a gift, and I'm thankful to have that gift in my life.
Well, that was one of the things that connected us when you first got to Oklahoma State, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But your faith has been very important to you personally, but it's also been very important to your family. And I know your family brought you to faith. But let's talk about a really early time in your life when your faith was tested, when your brother passed away. I know that's a difficult subject to talk about, but I also know that your faith allows you to talk about it. So go ahead and let me know about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I have an older brother, Joel Thomas. Everyone called him JT, and just a wonderful big brother. Joel was dreaming of being a major leaguer. He was a very, very passionate kid. Anything he did with a lot of passion. And yeah, we were really into baseball. We were a baseball family because Joel was into baseball, and he was loving life. Youngest player on his all-star team. He would go out into the batting cage that my dad set up. We had not a big house at the time, but an amazing garage, like a garage that two little boys would dream of, just so you could put a basketball hoop in there. And he made this tarp batting cage. And we had a cousin who played some minor league baseball. And he told my brother that the way they would train would be they'd hit 100 balls off of a tee with a weight on their bat, and then 100 without it, and they'd be working on their form. Well, I watched my brother at age 10 and 11 do that almost every single night. And so it was really a gift to me to get a chance to see what a work ethic looked like, what having passion looked like, just having dreams and not being afraid to go for it. So that was my brother, just to kind of give you an idea of who he was. And And yeah, as you mentioned, he passed away. It was I was almost 8 years old, and he was almost 12 years old. It was actually on April 1st, April Fool's Day, and he ran his absolute hardest to make a relay team at school in PE, and then he went to recess, and at recess he was playing basketball. He excused himself from the game. He sat up against the wall, and he had a heart attack that caused him to die. And but he was born with a heart condition. Joel was right from the start, and he was, it was really you weren't sure how much time you were going to get with him. It seemed like it was maybe going to be right then and there that he was going to pass away. And my dad would tell you that really he felt like with my brother he got a great deal. That he really said he remembered praying, just asking God to just give him a couple years to get to know his son. And what ended up happening was he got 12, and so I remember watching my father get up in front of everyone, my brother's funeral, and sharing with them just how thankful he was, how grateful he was to have got the time that he did with my brother and just get to know him. And so, I learned so much from that experience. I learned, like I said, some great lessons from my brother, but then I really learned from my parents what it looks like to, when you go through something that just really just rips your heart out, how you can be grieving but not devastated, and that is your faith and your hope, that comes from realizing that it's not all just about today, that there's an eternity, and that they are going to see their son again. I'm going to see my brother again, and and I got a chance. It was kind of sad. Another girl at our school during that time, few months later, passed away from that bacterial meningitis. Really, really a sad thing. But I saw her family. It was just really hard to watch. They were really bitter. It ended up leading to suing and getting a divorce. And I just saw the difference. I remember at about 8 years old recognizing that she had a little friend that was in my class, and watching kind of her life just kind of fall apart. And I saw my parents be very sad, but I saw them just rely on God, rely on each other. And as a result, my life was not being torn apart like that. My little friend's was. So that became really evident to me at a young age what faith means in someone's life and how important it is.
That's great that you had parents that would model that for you and would be an example for you. So, I didn't know you at that age. I didn't meet you until about 5 years later in the recruiting process. And you were already one of the best junior golfers in the country. I think at age 13, you made match play in the U.S. Junior.
Yes.
That doesn't happen. You would eventually go on to win the Western Junior by a record score at the honors course. And where we first became aware of you, when I was the assistant coach for Mike Holder, we became aware of you. Obviously, he saw you at the U.S. Junior, but we also knew you were attending the Ledbetter Academy down in Florida. So tell me about that experience. I know for a while that was all the rage and everybody wanted to go to the Ledbetter Academy. How was your experience there?
It was an awesome experience. I remember like I said, I had that good U.S. Junior, and kind of when I was 13 years old, and I kind of plateaued a little bit for the next year. I had pretty high expectations, but might have been part of it, but also just seemed like my game was kind of plateauing a little bit. And, you saw some of the players that were having some success were going there, Ty Tryon and Michael Barbosa and the Wong Lukiet family, Chan Song and Ari. And so I begged my parents. I mean, absolutely. It was the first week of August, and I begged them, I really want to go to the Ledbetter Junior Academy. I really want to go to the Ledbetter Junior Academy. School was starting the next week. We've never seen the place, and I'm not sure how my parents were able to come to the decision, but they said, okay, all right, well, let's do it. So with a week in notice, we go down there, enroll me in school, and I lived on campus for the first semester. I mean, there was no time for our family to make any kind of decision. And once I realized they found out that I liked it, well, we were, blessed to be able to get a place down there, a little condo that was just off campus, and my mom was there with me full time, and my dad, he had a wonderful business partner in the Northwest that they were able to kind of divide and conquer a little bit. And for my father, most of his skill set was the marketing and being on the road and traveling and selling, and so he could really do that from anywhere. He would be with us for a couple of weeks out of the month in Florida, and then he would travel the other couple of weeks, was just like what he'd been doing in the Northwest. And his business partner really kind of managed the office and everything that was happening there. And so it was just my family, we were able to stay together. I got to get out of the wet, cold Northwest, where you only got about an hour of practice after school before it was dark, and it was always in the rain. And I got longer days, sunshine. I remember just loving it, just eating it up, taking advantage of all the coaching, the training, and I know there were some kids that were down there that I think might have been a little bit more forced to be down there. But for me, it was just I wanted it so much, and it was such my parents. So thankful that they let me go down there. Thankful we were able to be there together, and because of it, it was a wonderful experience. So.
Well, Mike Holder and I, that's where we kind of discovered who you were and what you were about, and we started learning more and more about you. But when we heard a certain story about you as a young, I think 9 or 10-year-old, it cemented our desire to bring you to Oklahoma State, and I think you were playing against some older kids. Can you kind of tell that story? I want the world to hear that story.
Yeah, you are right. So I was 10 years old, and it was it was a junior tournament kind of down in Southern Oregon, and there wasn't very many kids in the field, but it was just a fun little Pee Wee Oregon junior tournament where I think there was 4 of us in the tournament. And everyone else was kind of 11 and 12. And we were coming down the stretch, and I was beating them. I was winning. And so it was the last hole, and I had what did I have? I think I had maybe a 2-shot lead going into the last hole, but all of a sudden I had to go to the bathroom. I mean, I had the Indian dance going, and I was going to pee in my pants in just a matter of seconds. But I was on the last green, and I needed to just, get it over with. And at that time, I didn't really have the confidence to just say, hold on a second, I need to go or relieve myself. And so I'm shaking over this, 12-footer. And I think I got, 3 putts maybe to win, and I wrap it by about 6 feet. And then I go and I shake over the next one, and I wrap that one by 6 feet. And I'm going to lose this tournament. I'm going to go in, if I miss this, I go into a playoff, and I'm going to lose. These older kids are going to beat me. And so I just decided to walk over to the side of the green. And again, I think I could have just walked over and off into the bushes, but instead I walked over to the side of the green, and I didn't want them to know what was going on. So I just peed my pants right there on the side of the green, so that I could then steady myself enough to have a chance and make the putt. And I made the putt. I won the tournament. My mom noticed this wet stain on the front of my pants, and so she bought me some new shorts in the pro shop so I could at least take a picture holding the trophy without having a pee stain on the front of my pants. So,
I've got to tell you, Jay Moore, I told Mike Holder when I heard that story that we have to get this kid, because anybody that wants to win badly enough to pee his pants, that's the guy we want on our team, and we want him now. So that story, that actual experience, probably got the deal, sealed the deal, if you will, and you ended up being a Cowboy. So, but anyway, so I always enjoyed that story. I thought it was kind of amazing. You had the confidence to win the golf tournament, but not the confidence to ask somebody to go to the restroom.
Exactly. So yeah, it's amazing.
So we continue to go through recruiting, and yours was not a typical recruiting situation. It probably changed a little bit. Describe that for you.
Yeah, so you mentioned the U.S. Junior. That was really special, and Coach Holder really made an impact on me there. And I won a playoff to make it into match play. There was, I think, maybe 14 of us for 4 or 3 spots, and I was the first group out, and I made a birdie on the 10th hole at Conway Farms. And, Coach Holder had watched me hit some balls on the range that week. He watched me play that playoff. And when I showed up the next morning, I think it was Brent Warner was his name. He was on his way to Wake Forest the next year. Coach Holder was there to watch, and he watched me get just, dusted by Brent Warner. But he watched every shot I hit, and I remember it was so inspiring to me. And when I got home, there was actually a media guide, Cowboy Golf media guide, which this might be a recruiting violation, I don't know, but he said he thought he remembered the coach at Stanford, Wally, writing Tiger a letter at a young age. So I wasn't in middle school yet, I wasn't in high school yet. So there was a note saying, I would like for you to go through this media guide. This is I've highlighted a lot of the big accomplishments that have happened over the years, and I believe you, if you work hard, could accomplish some of these as well. I look forward to welcoming you on campus in the fall of 2004. So I'm going through this media guide, and there's all these amazing accomplishments by these players that have been highlighted. And I started dreaming of Oklahoma State. You said, I had that when I was 16, I won the Western Junior, and kind of had a great summer that year. I won 5 events and was just really, really on a roll. And at the time, Ty Tryon was 17 years old, and he went to the PGA Tour Q school, and he qualified for the PGA Tour. And my dad, as amazing an accomplishment as that was worried that I might start thinking along the same lines, and that there might be pressure along the same lines for me to start, thinking about just kind of accelerating the process. And he wanted to slow the process down. I think, one, recognizing it's just be a good experience to go to college, but also just I think was having so much fun with me and our family traveling and doing everything together. And so we actually, when I was 16, that next fall, we started kind of taking some, unofficial visits. And obviously, we were at the Ledbetter Academy, so Florida, Gainesville was just up the road. So that was kind of our first one. And then I played one of the AJJ events over spring break up in Georgia, and we stopped into Georgia Tech and saw Coach Hepler. And, just really kind of fell in love with the Bobby Jones lore that was there, and Eastlake, and thinking Matt Kuchar had just kind of had a stellar amateur career, and just kind of seeing the big city and the U.S. Amateur and Matt Kuchar, and you just seemed like there was a lot of really neat opportunities there, and an education from Georgia Tech. And so again, my dad wanting me to kind of start to have this maybe a longer kind of vision plan, we made the decision to verbally commit to Georgia Tech. And so I lived with that decision for about 6 months. And I was playing the Polo Junior. And again, Coach Holder came out to watch the match, but he wasn't watching me. He was watching who was supposed to come to Oklahoma State, Nicholas Limke. And Nicholas, again, just every time Coach Holder watched me, I got dusted. He just annihilated me. 5 and 4, hit it on every single par 5 and 2, and just made golf look easy. But I just remember thinking, man, I never saw the place that I dreamed of going for the last few years, and that's kind of a big part of who I am. I've always, when I practice, I'm always dreaming of being in a tournament situation, or, that's just always something that's motivated me. And so, so I got done with that round, and I told my dad, I said, Dad, I think I've made a mistake. I said, I'm not feeling very good about going to Georgia Tech, because I never even saw Oklahoma State. And he realized quickly, oh boy, I made it. I did the wrong thing. I intervened when I shouldn't have. And to my dad's credit, he's always been great about me being able to communicate with them. And he's such a humble guy, and really good at listening, and just a great leader. And so he kind of swallowed any embarrassment and pride that, that he might have had from the situation. And he goes, well, let me call Coach Holder. So he called Coach Holder, and Coach Holder still can't believe that, it was my dad on the other end of the phone, and said, we'd like to come, and maybe could we be there tomorrow to see Stillwater. And so we got in the car, and we drove, 20 something hours from Florida to Stillwater, and stopped overnight basically at about 3 a.m. in Tulsa, slept a couple more hours, and drove the rest of the way into Stillwater. And we walked through those front doors at Karsten Creek to meet you and Coach Holder for breakfast, and he hadn't told you yet, I don't believe. So
He did not. He just told me to be there for breakfast. I thought, okay, I'll meet you for breakfast.
yeah, so I remember you were shocked, just the look on your face, seeing my dad and I walk through the doors, and we got a chance to sit down with you guys and visit and have a great breakfast, and just remember being a beautiful, crisp fall day, and just going around the golf course and the practice facilities was everything I'd ever dreamed of. It was so golf, and just looked like if that was your passion, it was the place to go. And so I remember we then had lunch, and Coach said, this is amazing, and I wish I could spend more time with you. But as important as you are to me, he said, there's something going on today that's like one of the most important days that happens every 2 years in my life, and it was Bedlam football. And being from the Northwest, we had no idea what football was even about. And so he goes, now you could come if you'd like. I could figure out a way to get you some tickets, but we decided we just kind of walked around campus a little bit and got back on the road. We came for what we came for, and so that was amazing. I just remember driving back all the way to Florida with kind of having that dream that I'd always had of going there was now alive again, and just the motivation to know that I was going to be able to come play for Coach Holder and for you was really special.
Well, that was a very, very unusual day in my coaching career as well, but it also accentuated to me the importance of early in the process of, you wish you had seen Oklahoma State, or you wish you had seen, maybe you made a little bit of an early decision.
Yep.
I think a lot of kids do that nowadays,
Yeah.
and more so than in your day, for sure.
Right.
And so it kind of illustrates the importance of just making sure, at the time. But you ended up at the right place, I know, for you. And we went through the rest of the recruiting process following you, afar from tournaments. And then something happened the summer before you got to campus in the summer of '04. You got injured.
I did. Yeah. I was, Tiger obviously was such an important part of my upbringing, and for everyone my age, when I was 9 years old, he was starting to win those U.S. amateurs, and he made fitness such an important part of the game. And so, that was one thing that I had an amazing opportunity to get involved with down at the Ledbetter Junior Academy was an awesome fitness program, where I was training every day after school during my lunchtime, before going out to practice. And unfortunately, I think as I've learned now a little bit, I was doing some good things, but I think it was a little too much, just only like training like an athlete, and probably a little too much like a lot of football players do, and ended up kind of getting injuring my back as I developed these muscles, and possibly not an advantageous way, that caused me then, as I started to swing, to have back issues. And so I was playing the Monroe Invitational at the time, and my I was actually having a very good event, and I think I was in the top 10 going into the third round. But practice round, my back hurt a little bit. Second round, it hurt a little bit more. Second round, it hurt. First round, second round, a little bit more. And by the time I got to that morning, the third round, it was getting to the point where I wasn't even able to swing like I would want, and I attempted to play a few holes and realized this wasn't going to do me any good. And so, really, only tournament I've ever withdrawn from in my life. And so now I'm in this. What do I do? I got to get healthy. I'm supposed to be going to Oklahoma State in the fall, and thankfully got introduced to some neat things. There was a doctor in the Northwest that did a treatment that's really well known now called active release technique. And when I was in Stillwater, there was a great active release therapist in Tulsa, Dr. Peterson. His son was a great linebacker for us at Oklahoma State, and so Oklahoma State sent me towards him, and which was great. And he really helped me while I was at school. But really, I didn't get to play a lot of tournament golf over the summer. I kind of got healthy right before the Western Amateur. Played the Western Am, was able to qualify for the US Am a few days after that, and then played the US Am, and made my way to campus. But definitely not with the confidence probably that I might have had playing a summer full of golf and being healthy.
You know, during that same summer where you were struggling with your back, I became the women's golf coach at Oklahoma State. So I had recruited you as an assistant coach, and now I've become the women's coach. And I made a conscious desire or effort in my mind. I was going to still have a relationship with you. I was still going to. So this year we're getting ready to talk about, you and I wasn't your coach, but we had coffee together about once a week.
Yes, we did. Yes, we
did. And as the year progressed and your scores got worse and your as your confidence left.
You can say it. They got worse. I mean, it was, first high 70s, then low 80s, then high 80s, then low 90s, then high 90s. And I couldn't break 100 by the time I left.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was something I'd never seen before from a really, really good player like you were. And so, but I'm going to say this. So let's just say that nobody else in the world got to see this, just basically your teammates and coaches in Stillwater.
Right.
So you were struggling, obviously, as a player, but I want to mention something, and I'm going to say it to everybody out there that's listening. That coffee that we had every Thursday evening was something I look forward to. And Ryan Posey joined us on several of those, good friend of yours and roommate. But I scarcely knew you were struggling as a golfer that year. We talked about life, and we talked about faith, and we talked about the future, and we talked about all kinds of things when we had those talks, and we laughed and we joked and we just had a good time. And I really enjoyed that. But if somebody else that didn't know you or I had been sitting at the next table every Thursday evening, they never would have known that you were shooting in the high 90s in golf. They never would have known that you'd been one of the best junior players in the country at one time. So that to me speaks to your faith as well. And I'm gonna talk a little bit here, if I could, for just a second, because it was very special to me. Literally, I obviously, when somebody's struggling like that, you don't want to talk about it. It's like that's uncomfortable, and you weren't talking about it, so I just didn't ever bring it up. But later, and after much after all of this kind of lined itself out, over a year and a half later, I asked you a question, and we're going to get back to that question. It was right after the Walker Cup. So, but the point I'd like to make, and the observation I would like to make, is I couldn't tell you were struggling. Yeah. You were just having a good time. You were getting to know people. You were having a great time, but literally the worst golf of your life. Golf was not even an option at the time, correct?
Right. Correct. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. It's one of the greatest gifts God's ever given me, and allowing me to go through that year, because prior, when I got to Oklahoma State, golf was 100%. I mean, that was my identity. I mean, that was, when I went out to the golf course, it was a time where I got a chance to kind of look around and how I'm a little better than that guy, and I'm better than that guy, and I'm better than that guy. And I might not have consciously been saying that to myself, but that absolutely was the case, just really a chance to kind of almost get your ego stroked a little bit. And quickly that became a place now where, I mean, I was getting my teeth kicked in and embarrassed, really, I mean, just by it all. And so, but the but was, the people that God put in my life at Oklahoma State. So you, Ryan Posey, my best friend, college teammate, best man at my wedding, who I'm going to talk to if anything is going on that I need help with in my life. And he took me to church that very first Sunday. It's the church my wife and my children and my parents still go to this day. And so I had people like Brandon Boyd at Campus Crusade for Christ. I had Brad Payne with College Golf Fellowship. I had Mike McGraw on campus. I had Ryan Posey. I had my pastor, Jonathan Dorse. And I had Mike and Victoria Dotson. I mean, I had people in my life that, I just, man, how blessed am I? I mean, these are just unbelievable quality individuals that the most important thing about all of those people is that they love the Lord with all their heart. And as I was going through this time, I got a chance to be encouraged and uplifted by people, and I was learning new things about my faith. I was loving just this community at Stillwater, really of a lot of students that have had a faith on campus. And so golf had never been worse in my life. It never has been that bad since. But my life to that point had never been better. So, it was this amazing gift again to get to learn that, circumstances in your life aren't going to be what determines the joy and the happiness and everything that you have in your life. So,
well, that's a great testimony, and it reminds me that it's very easy to praise God, and it's very easy to be thankful for all the blessings you have when things are going great.
yeah.
But when God gives you the blessing of adversity, and you're able to take that blessing of adversity and do something with it to inspire other people around you, which you did inspire me that year, that's a special thing. It's very special. And I think it set the platform for what would be, in my opinion, the greatest comeback in the history of college golf, period. Never seen anything like it. And so if I could, thank you for that testimony, by the way, but if I could describe what you went through the next year.
Yeah.
You got a new instructor over the summer. You got healthier and healthier. You started dipping your toe in the waters of competition again and started playing in events. I think you finished 4th in an amateur event someplace. But you had a decent summer, a real solid summer, and came back. And I had become the head coach.
Yep.
That following. So you came to college thinking I was going to be your assistant coach. I wasn't. You were getting ready to start your second year in college thinking I was the women's head coach, and then I was the head men's coach. So
yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're on my team.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking to myself, Jonathan's just experienced one of the toughest years a college golfer has ever experienced, results wise. And how's he going to handle this? And you qualified for our first tournament, the preview.
Yeah, but I qualified because of some things that you did in that qualifier.
That's okay. What did I do in that qualifying?
Well, instead of having us just knock it out for 6 rounds from the tips at Karsten Creek, we played 2 rounds at Karsten, 2 rounds at Stillwater Country Club, and 2 rounds at Oak Tree National. That allowed me to shoot, I think, an 81 and an 83 at Karsten and play well enough at those other 4 courses to qualify.
You think there was a genius behind that or not?
I think there was an absolute genius behind it.
I think I just needed you in the lineup.
Yeah.
But anyway, you played the preview, and other than an 11 on the 5th hole, other than that.
Yeah, just an 11.
Well, it was just an 11. But other than that, your week went quite well. I saw signs of old Jonathan Moore again. And then every tournament we played, it's like you took your step up to another platform of a little bit more confidence, not Jonathan still, but you were closer.
Yeah.
And we got all the way to the match play, and you did some pretty good things at the match play, Callaway match play at the end of the fall. We start the spring, and the same thing happens. A little bit better, and you actually had a couple of decent rounds at a tournament. Then we went to Vegas, and you were actually leading after 2 rounds.
Right.
Shot a poor final round, and then you finished second at, I think, Houston afterwards.
Yep.
Second at Austin at University of Texas Golf Club. So now all of a sudden, Jonathan's become this really good player again, and our team is good, and it's getting better. And so I watched incremental progress, and I know part of that is your faith, because you were just hang in there. It's going to get better. I know it's getting better, and it did. And Jonathan, you won the last 3 tournaments of that redshirt freshman year, the Maxwell, the regionals, and the national championship. You were 34 under par during that stretch. We won the team title, and you won the individual title. And I got to tell you, I still have this photo in my office at home of you and I embracing each other after you made that 20-footer on the last hole to win the national championship by 3. I'll never forget that moment in my career. But to me, it was the absolute greatest comeback in the history of college golf. So now that's my description of it. What do you think?
That's a good description of it. I get to see that picture every day too. It's hung up on the wall in Karsten Creek, so that's special for me to see that embrace. I'll never. I mean, just absolute chills. I remember when we hugged. I think it's just it's an example of kind of when when things, the right ingredients come together, where, I'd really been stripped away of a lot of things that first year. And so I was very open to learn, open to, not try to just hang on to certain things. I was really ready to try to get better, learn from people that I felt like could help me get better. And so the new golf instructor, Kevin Smeltz, I started working with over the summer, that was nice to have some new input. I mean, for anyone that's out there struggling, I think, it's, if you really get in a bad place where it's kind of almost yips, it's tough to keep committing to the same feels that you've seen create some really bad results. That's just really hard to do. And often the case, probably those feels aren't necessarily the right thing to be doing. You're in a position and then you're trying to commit to something that doesn't match up with the position you're in. That's kind of what I feel like I've learned from that. But so having something new, I think it is not a bad thing if you're in that situation right now. If you're out there, if you're a junior golfer or someone that's struggling. So and then just kind of the getting back on the horse a little bit. It's I think for me, I was qualifying the whole time through it. I didn't just take a summer off. I got back into it, kept playing tournaments, and I sometimes get a little concerned when I hear people say, I'm just, I'm kind of burnt out of it, and I just need to get away for a little bit, because I really don't think you're probably addressing what's going to help you eventually overcome it. I think there's I would encourage people to just keep going, keep getting out there. And again, that was the blessing of that year, was realizing that, life's great. Life still can be full of wonderful things, even if your results on the golf course aren't good, even if there's difficulty in your life. And so that was again, that my faith, I think, did free me up to continue to put it on the line, to continue to go out and compete, to continue to try to get better, because ultimately that it was just a game, and it was a game that God was using in my life to ultimately grow me closer to Him. But it's nothing more than that when you get down to it. And so I got a chance to, just kind of, like you said, incrementally get a little bit better. And some funny stories there, though. I mean, that first qualifier, I was 1 under through 8 holes that first round at Karsten Creek, and it was downwind on 9, and I had a 5-wood that I could knock right on the green. And I'd played a little better over that summer than you gave me credit for. I finished second in the stroke play of the Western Am.
There you go.
So I had some pretty good events, and I'd been playing well. And so I stepped up and I said, it's a 5-wood. You need to just hit this right on the green. Well, I fouled one off, and I went on to shoot 83 that round. So quickly, everything that I'd kind of dealt with the year before, hit me again over the next 10 holes. But like you said, there was a genius behind what was going on there, and I got that first spot. And then you said, I made an 11 that first qualifier. I think I was almost in 10th place around playing my back 9 that second round, and it was that the 5th hole out there? I think the 5th hole, and you got to kind of carry over this ravine, and I towed it a little bit, and it was an into left to right wind, and it didn't get the carry, and my ball stayed up on the bank. And I thought, oh, great, I don't have to, so I can go and just pitch it out into the fairway. Well, I dug myself into that bank, and it was pretty steep. I had to get it up, but no big deal, just chip it out. Well, I just didn't take into consideration how steep the bank was. And then there was just this little skinny tree stump that was about the size and width of a golf ball that was sticking up about 3 feet off the ground. But again, I just didn't realize that was pretty high because I was going up such a hill. And sure enough, I nailed that, and it came back, and I dug myself so much into that bank that the ball, then I couldn't react in time. The ball hit me, then rolled into the water. And so now I got a penalty shot for hitting myself, and I got to go back to the tee. And I think I was hitting 7 from the tee, and and I made an 11 and handled it like most freshmen do, melted down the rest of the round, and shot 80 something. And so, anyways, that was, but then you walked with me that last round, which I remember meant a lot to me that you would, I wasn't counting for, I hadn't, but you came out and walked with me, and I remember did some really, really good things that day, and shot a nice solid round. And so, having people that I see it every day, and being now kind of watching our golfers here at Oklahoma State, how much it means to have a coach invest time in them and kind of come alongside them. And, really, it just gives you confidence just by them coming out and watching you practice, watching you play. It makes you feel like they believe in you. And, you kind of watching me play that last day was something that kind of, when I left that tournament, I was moving in the right direction. I felt like you guys were starting to believe in me again, and that I was going to have a place on this team.
Well, and you did. And as we've discussed, we won the national championship. You're on a high. You actually qualified for the U.S. Open right afterwards, played in the U.S. Open, which was a great experience, I know. And then you come back the next year, and we have another great year. And you actually get picked for the Palmer Cup team.
Yeah.
That I was going to be coaching. I did not pick you. The committee put you on there. You weren't my captain's pick, which was great. I didn't want to have to pick a player. So you got that spot. And the last thing you did in college was play for me at the Palmer Cup at Caves Valley.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this a couple of times on this podcast because we swept the singles matches one afternoon, 8-0. Never seen that ever.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And you had some pretty good teammates there, didn't you?
Yeah. That was tough for those guys. No, that was a fun. I mean, that was really a fun summer for me. Just getting to be a part of that team, and then kind of the Walker Cup practices, and just really, I was very aware of just, obviously you couldn't predict the careers that people were going to have, but I was very aware of the talent that was around me. I mean, it was special. I mean, obviously Webb, Dustin Johnson, Billy Horschel, Luke List and Brian Harmon were on that Palmer Cup team. They weren't on the Walker Cup, but you get Ricky Fowler involved now all of a sudden in the Walker Cup, and Chris Kirk and Jamie Lovemark. I mean, it was amazing. Kyle Stanley. I mean, these guys, and that was what was really fun for me. I just remember realizing and seeing that everyone kind of had a special quality to them. There was something that made them really, really good. Ricky's was really neat. It was fun to watch, and obviously you got to coach him, so you'll enjoy this. But I just remember how confident he was. And I remember, it was the only time really that I was probably someone he was looking up to me at that point. After that I was looking up to him, but
Sure.
At that point he was young, and I was on the older side of it. But and so I remember we played quite a few practice rounds together at the Walker Cup, and he played so bad. I mean, it was just, he was hitting it everywhere, but he wasn't fazed by it. I mean, it just, you couldn't tell that he was playing bad at all. And so I remember one day after one of the rounds, he just goes, "Hey, Jamor, will you come watch me hit a few balls? I just need someone to kind of just watch me for a second." I was like, "Okay, sure." I was like, and he's like, "Can you just tell me, how's my alignment?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." He's like, "What about, like hips, shoulders, feet? What that?" I said, "My shoulders look maybe a little open." He goes, "Oh, okay, perfect. That's it. I got it." I was like, "Okay, great. You got it." So that's all it was. It was his shoulders. Well, he still continued, I think, to hit it like trash that week. But he found a way to win pretty much every match. He did win every match. And it was the afternoon day, the first round, the singles matches. I sat out that afternoon, and I caught up with him on the seventh green, and I watched him make a putt for birdie. And then we go to the eighth tee, and I watch him tee off, and he's playing Lloyd Saltman, and he walks over to me and he was like 3 or 4 up already through 7 holes. He goes, "Jamor," he goes, "I am hitting it so bad, but I am making everything, and it is driving this guy crazy." And it was, I just remember, there's times in my career where I just think, I would have been, in a moment, in a situation like that, in the Walker Cup, you wanted to have your best stuff. And, the fact that he was actually kind of excited about how he didn't have his best stuff, and he was still beating this guy. And it was just a really neat experience to kind of watch him, and just, that was one of his skills,
Well, and he's still got that skill. And actually, it was great to see him play well this week in the PGA Championship.
Yeah, it was.
He played very well. But you describe what Ricky did that week and all those great teammates you had at the Walker Cup. But honestly, Jonathan, I want you to talk about the 17th and 18th hole in the deciding match, singles match, the final day when the cup is on the line, the Walker Cup on the line.
All right.
That
Sounds
was
good.
you were the last match.
So that 18th hole was really good to me that week. I played I think we only actually played it 4 times. It's for whatever reason in matches we maybe didn't always go to in our practice rounds to the 18th hole, but 4 times I played it that week, counting the tournament. And the first time in a practice round, I made a birdie and kind of won some money from my teammates. And then the next practice round, I made an eagle. So my last practice round before it started, I made an eagle and won some money from Colt Nost and a couple of those guys, which was fun. And then first match, Webb and I we are 1 down with 2 holes. No, we're two down with 2 holes to play, and we're on hole 17. And he'd hit a nice iron shot in there about 15 feet from the hole, and I had a birdie putt to extend the match. Made the birdie, hit a tee shot. Webb hit a tee shot just barely in the left rough on 18. I hooked a 5-iron up around just kind of in front of the green, and he had a 150-foot long putt that he made for eagle. So I've got 2 eagles going on that hole already that week, and then Trip Keeney and I had a great 4-ball match, or foursomes, right? Foursomes match. Foursomes match that second morning. It was really fun to play with, a former Oklahoma State Cowboy. We teamed up really well. We both played great that day, and we won 3 and 2. And so I didn't play the 18th hole that match, but then it was coming down the stretch. We swept that morning session. It looked like we were going to win this thing. We had it. But all those singles matches weren't going so well that afternoon, and you could hear the roars. We were in Northern Ireland. I think there was about 12,000 people out watching, and you could hear things were not going favorably for us. And we got to 17, and where Jamie Lovemark found me at that point, and I was 1 up, and he's just, come on, Jay Moore, come on, it's going to come down to your match, is what he said, and so I actually 3-putted from long range on 17 to lose the hole. I missed about a 5-footer on my second putt. And Buddy Marucci, our captain, we're walking from the green to the tee box, and I said, "Well, how's it stand?" And I'll never forget how honest he was with me. He goes, "Well, Jay Moore," he goes, "if you would have made that putt, that would have guaranteed that we would tie the matches and retain the Walker Cup. But since you missed that putt, if you lose this hole, we lose. If you tie the hole, we tie. And if you win the hole, we win." Oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't have asked you how he stood, that's what I'm thinking. But Nigel Edwards striped his tee shot right down the middle. So I followed him up with another good tee shot. Mine kind of, links golf hit the fairway, just kind of trundled barely off into the really light first cut of rough on the right side of the fairway. And I was a couple yards behind him. I was 252 yards out, and my caddy and I, it was so dry, we were debating between a 5 and a 4-iron. That's how firm things were. Little wind off the right, and we were thinking 5-iron, but then at the last minute, we're like, let's hit a 4-iron. We want to at least get it there. It's this is the last hole. Let's get it up on the green. And because really it was so firm that week, being in front of the greens was always a pretty good strategy. Oftentimes your competitors might mess up, and as long as you just kind of kept putting it in the right spot. And but we said, let's get it there. So I hit a 4-iron. And I went with kind of my draw feel on that shot, and I hit a shot that just came off. I remember seeing the flags kind of in the distance, and the ball took off and kind of rode the wind with that right to left wind off those flags. And the hole was kind of set up to where you could take a straight line at the green, but the way the terrain sloped, if you were landing it short of the green, it was sloping pretty hard left to right. So having a ball that was curving right to left would allow it to kind of run up that slope. And that's exactly what my ball did, and probably landed about 40 yards short of the green, carried probably 210, and just kept rolling, kept rolling, and kept rolling. And you know, it rolled right up there about 4 feet short of the hole. Nigel Edwards had a great shot, but again, he took that straight line at it. So it kind of hit and then bounced down a little bit to the right. So he was kind of on the front right of the green. But he still had a chance. He was about 35 feet away, and he lagged it up there about a foot away. And I just remember kind of handing him my ball. And you know, what happens is you get into moments like that, and thankfully you've had other moments that prepare you for it. And I remember at the national championship a year earlier, maybe a year and 4 months earlier, being on the 16th hole that last day and having about a 4-footer for birdie on the par 5, and you're just so nervous, everything in your body shaking. And but I tried to visualize these 3 rulers that I would use to practice my putting that I'd been doing since I was about 10 years old. And I just imagined all the 4-footers and setting up to that ruler that I'd made in my life. And I knocked that 4-footer in at the national championship. And so I handed him that ball, and I remember just kind of the same thing, just kind of trying to really slow the moment down and imagine just, again, you know, you got those rulers out, and it's an inside, you know, right center putt. And it's, you know, just those rulers. But I'll never forget, I took my practice strokes and I set my putter down behind the ball, and I literally had to tell myself to take it back. I mean, it felt like I froze. I mean, I explain it to people where when you get in situations like in the national championship or the Walker Cup, I mean, man, I don't know that you necessarily wish it on your worst enemy in some ways. I mean, you're so nervous. I mean, you're just, I mean, your face is twitching, you know, your legs buckle out from underneath of you. I mean, it's an amazing feeling. I mean, you know, you learn to really enjoy it and have fun with it, but it's not a comfortable situation. That's for sure. You know, you feel very uncomfortable. And I just remember telling myself to pull it back. And I definitely pushed the putt a little bit, but it was an inside, you know, right center putt. I pushed it probably an inside right edge, and it curved just enough to really, it kind of caught the right side of the hole and went in. And I don't remember much after that. I just, I've seen it on TV, but I don't really remember much after that.
Well, it was a great moment in amateur golf history for the United States, for sure. And 2 weeks later, you and I were having lunch at Karsten Creek, and that's when you told me the story of your freshman year being the greatest blessing of your life. And you just described that a while back here, but to me, that was amazing. And so that was kind of the icing on the cake. And you turned professional shortly thereafter, and you played actual professional golf for about, I don't know,
9 years. Yeah.
9 years. Yeah, about 9 years. And you had various success on the Asian tour for sure. Played in the British Open once, I think 2014. Is that correct?
2015 at St. Andrews.
2015 at St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Okay. But one thing I've failed, so you've played a pro career, and eventually we're going to get to what you're doing now. But one thing we failed to mention is your wife, your beautiful wife, Claire. Yeah. And I remember meeting Claire in the hallway at Karsten Creek. You were showing her the trophies, and I had heard rumor that you were dating a girl named Claire, and she was from Cushing, Oklahoma. And I remember you came up, you said, Coach McGraw, I want you to meet someone. And I said, you must be Claire from Cushing.
You were so good at embarrassing all of us.
I embarrassed you right there. Yeah. And so anyway, I still call her Claire from Cushing. I don't know her last name. Is it Moore? Did you name her?
Yeah. Well, she kept her middle name, or her last name is her middle name, but she actually did take my last name. So.
Well, but anyway, you and Claire obviously ended up getting married, and so that gets to another story of faith, in my opinion, an amazing story of faith, and that is your son JT.
Right.
So can you please describe all you've been through with JT and just how God has brought you through that?
Yeah. So, you know, again, his name's JT, and that was, we named him Jeffrey Thomas Moore. My brother's name was Joel Thomas Moore. Claire's father, who passed away in 2014 from a real, just hard battle with cancer that came on suddenly. His name was Jeffrey. And so my son is named after two incredible men. And JT, you know, was born in 2017. He just had his 4th birthday, April 14th, and he was born on a Good Friday. that year, and it was really a great, just an amazing thing. Just that we have our firstborn is Adeline Grace. We recently just adopted a little girl, Charlotte Faith is her middle name, Charlotte Faith, and so we have three, but JT, he's our only son, and it was really special to just, I remember that day and just thinking about having a boy, and so. But what ended up happening, and what's happened is JT, he was kind of slow to do some things, and but we were kind of being assured really that he's a boy. Boys are lazy. He's got a big head. Big heads don't, it's just tough to move around a whole lot, and don't compare him to big sister, who was quite advanced in everything she did, but we got about 5 months in, and he still wasn't doing very much, and so thankfully, again, this town of Stillwater, you get to know so many people that one of the local neurologists was able to see us, and then was able to kind of help us, not have to have a year-long wait to get in to see a pediatric neurologist down at OU Children's, but rather 2 days later, we were in front of Dr. Cushell, who's just an amazing pediatric neurologist who's been JT's neurologist. She assured us that we were in the right place. She said, everything's okay. What he had it's called hypotonia. It's just just a low tone in someone's body, which doesn't allow them to kind of move very well. But in most cases, physical therapy and some things can kind of correct that. And a few years later, you'll kind of know nothing really happened. It might be a little bit of an indifferent childhood, but the time they're 6, 7, 8 years old, all things are pretty good. And she did say though, but his tone is more of an axial low tone, more his skeleton, and not just his extremities. And because of that, I would like to do an MRI, because sometimes of his brain, sometimes that can be a symptom of a neurological condition. And I just remember when she said that, it was like one of those, oh no, just please tell me that's not the case, but it definitely stuck out in a big way. And so again, amazing things happen. This MRI, a cancellation happened. Instead of being a few months down the road, we were 3 weeks later, got an MRI, and so I was actually doing some of my continuing education up in Michigan, and our neurologist, she said, Jonathan, I'll never, if there's ever any kind of news that is worthy of me sharing, that maybe is difficult or important, I'll be the one that calls. Otherwise, I'll have my nurse Rick call you. And so I remember getting the number and seeing that, okay, I could tell it was OU Children's, and answering the phone. And I remember it was, I remember it was Dr. Cushell, and I'd removed myself, and I was in a hallway, and I just, as soon as I heard her voice, I just slid down that hallway, that wall, and and she shared with us that there was some pretty significant findings with the MRI, and that's kind of begun. That was the start of our adventure. It really has been an adventure with JT, but and what's happened for JT is this: he has a white matter brain disease that's still undiagnosed. It's also seems to be affecting his gray matter now. It seems to be a neuronal issue. It seems to be just more and more complex as time goes. But it affects JT in every way. I mean, every way. It's just, the brain's so amazing. I mean, we just don't even appreciate what all's happening to have us, function normally. But really, there's nothing physically wrong with his body, other than just the message, the signals don't get sent the right way, and or there's an interruption that happens, and because of that, JT, his eyes are perfect, but functionally he's blind. Just because of the optic nerve, and he he can't shut off his esophagus in time when he's swallowing to where things go into his lungs. So he's fed nothing by mouth. Everything goes directly into his stomach through a G tube. He has very little to any movement in his body. He really is like a sack of potatoes. He's the best cuddler and snuggler because of that. He's nonverbal. He doesn't speak. He can tell us when he's happy and when he's not happy. So it's been, so JT, his life, it just looks so much different. He's so dependent on everyone really, to help him do everything. Get up, get dressed, eat, everything. He's relying on someone else. And what's amazing is how content he is. He really doesn't complain. He's been in some pain the last couple of weeks that we're trying to figure out why. And so, he eventually, things get bad enough that he starts letting you know. But for the most part, he's so content, and he doesn't ask for anything. He literally just, you can tell, it's just, he just loves being held. He loves just knowing that you're with him, just kind of being in his presence. And it's really just been inspiring for me to just kind of to watch and see as he kind of battles through his life, because it really is a challenge. He's had so many hard days, where difficult times in the hospital, and but again, I've seen where God's so merciful and kind to our family, because just everything, with my brother, with what happened at school my freshman year, I 100% believe that this didn't just come to us without God preparing our family for it. And so he's prepared us all along the way for what was really going to be, I believe, the greatest challenge in our life. And he's with us every step of the way. And, I remember just initially those hospital visits and all the hospital visits we've had, just, oh gosh, we got to go to the hospital again. And how before long, God helped me just to see what a gift that is. It's a day I get to take off from work, and thankfully, because of Coach Bratton and how much he cares about family, and I get to go be with my son all day. Those are days where I get to just go hold him, love on him, and help him. And I remember my dad used to do that for me with all my lessons, all my tournaments. He would take off work, and he would he'd come make me the priority and help me. And so it looks a lot different with JT, but it's it's the same. And you just you want to see your kids thrive. I mean, that's the whole thing. You want to see them thrive. And in JT, it's not going to look like everyone else, but our goal is just to help him thrive. And I really believe he is. I really do believe he's thriving, and he's making a difference in so many people's lives. It's really remarkable. Without saying a word, he is going to touch and impact so many people's lives.
Well, and that underscores one, gratitude that you have that God brought JT into your lives, and two, the fact that he is such a blessing for you and Claire and your family. So that's wonderful, and again, it speaks to your faith, which is very, very strong.
I'm just gonna share one more story kind of before we probably need to wrap up. But he with JT, he does so much therapy throughout the day. You're trying to help his muscles and his body as he's, they develop a scoliosis over time, and they, develop stiffness in their muscles and spasticity. And so you're always stretching them and massaging them. And I was doing that for him one morning, and, just his hands, you want to try to help him be able to open his hands. For me, just kind of working through the whole process, and because I know that that suffering and hard times are part of God's plan for your life, and I do know that He is working good through those, and I know that really the greatest gifts usually come through those times. And so it kind of all of a sudden just hit me one day as I was kind of stretching JT. I was kind of just we're listening to some music, and I was helping him open his hands and kind of asking the question, just almost, just kind of talking to God about things. And it kind of all of a sudden hit me as I was opening JT's hands that I saw his hands spread open as I was pulling him apart. And it reminded me, you did do something about this, God. You sent your son to willingly die on a cross for us. And his hands were open and nails were pierced through them onto a cross. And he died for our sins. He died for every disease that's in this world, all the addictions, all the depression, all of these things that people are afflicted with. He did do something about it. And then he rose 3 days later and conquered all of those things. And so, again, you just, so many of these difficult situations, it's amazing the gifts and the blessings that come from them. So even if they're chewing at you a little bit, and they will chew at you, it still doesn't take away from the blessing that's going to come.
Well, thank you for that, Jay Moore. That testimony is really, really strong, and that speaks to your character, and it also speaks to how God's working in your life. So I want to thank you for that.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah. I tell you what I want to do. I want to invite you back another time to talk about, I want to talk about your new career in physical fitness training for golf.
Yeah.
So let's do a whole nother podcast on that.
Great.
I am so intrigued by what you do and how you do it.
That'd be great.
We'll do that. But I want to just say thanks again for coming on today and just sharing your faith, sharing your testimony, and sharing your life in golf and how it's been so impactful to the people in Stillwater and certainly to me as a coach.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, Coach. I learned so many things from you over the years. One of them was on the 17th hole at Karsten Creek. I wasn't having my best day, and I hit a good approach shot in the green, and you said, Jay Moore, it's never too late to find something and to start getting better and to start playing good golf. So even though it's the 17th hole, or maybe it might be the last hole and you're about ready to miss a cut in your pro career, it's never too late. So that's why you always give it your best and you're always present in the moment. And then really one of the most amazing things about you happened at the national championship at the Blessings. I was just so excited to see you, and I was being very ignorant to the fact that you guys had teed off early that first day, and we were teeing off the Cowboys later that afternoon, and Claire and my daughter Adeline had come over, and I just was so excited for them to see you and you to meet Adeline, and I got your attention, and you were so just kind to us and to Claire and Adeline, and spent several minutes with us just visiting. And I remember looking at my phone right after we got done talking and realized, oh my gosh, you guys were done. And you guys had one of those rounds that was going to take it, any chances you had of making it into match play out of there. And it was just one of those really, really just, again, to you, credit to who you are and the person you are. You continue to keep teaching me lessons, Coach, and I can't thank you enough for it.
Well, I want you to know that you've taught me a lot through the years as well. Just your humility, all the things you've done and what you've stood for, and how you've handled adversity has taught me a lot. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, sharing those stories and many, many more. And like I said, I'm going to have you on again to talk about physical fitness training as well.
Sounds good. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Have a good day, Jay Moore.
See you, buddy.
See you.